Have you ever just looked around at all our modern gadgets, our progress, and just wondered why so many of us are still so unhappy? It's a huge question, right? To help us get some answers, we're going to dive into the work of philosopher Alain de Botton. He's pretty much dedicated his life to figuring out our modern anxieties.
And this is the giant puzzle of our time. I mean, think about it. We live in a world with more wealth, more technology, and more freedom than any other time in history. We solve so many of the problems our ancestors could only dream of solving. And yet, so many of us are dealing with this deep sense of loneliness, anxiety, and just suffering. So what's really going on?
Well, de Botton gives it a name. He calls it the paradox of regress amidst progress. It's this idea that while our societies have leaped forward in a million different ways, our inner lives, our emotional well-being have somehow gone backward. And that's the mystery we're going to try and unpack today.
So to kick things off, let's just look at some numbers, because these stats really show just how serious this paradox has become. And the data points to a really intense crisis, especially for men.
In the UK, a staggering 76% of all suicides are men. I mean, just let that sink in. Suicide is the single biggest cause of death for men under 45. This isn't just a sad number on a page. It's a massive red flag pointing to a much, much deeper problem in our society. So the real question is, why? Why is this happening?
According to de Botton, the key thing here isn't just the suffering itself. It's where we think the suffering comes from. In our modern world, when we fail, we feel this intense, crushing sense of personal responsibility. It leads to shame. So it's not just that things are bad, it's the toxic belief that we are bad, that it's all our fault.
Okay, so where does all this pressure, this deep personal shame, even come from? Well, it's actually baked into some of the most powerful ideas that shape our world today.
Think about this for a second. Let's go back about 400 years. If you were poor, you'd be called an unfortunate, someone who'd been dealt a bad hand by Fortuna, the goddess of luck. The whole idea was that external forces were at play. But today, in our hyper-individualistic world, the word we use is loser, and the meaning is crystal clear. Your failure is on you and only you.
Now, this huge mental shift is really a direct result of an idea called meritocracy. And look, on the surface, it's a great idea, right? Your success should be based on your talent and your effort, not who your parents are. And that's a huge step forward. But it has a hidden and pretty painful psychological dark side.
You see, this way of thinking makes life harder for literally everyone. If you win, you might start to believe you did it all by yourself, which can make you less kind, less compassionate. But if you fail, meritocracy offers zero comfort. There's no bad luck, no fortuna to blame. The failure feels like a judgment on who you are as a person, and that is an absolutely crushing weight to carry.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit, from the wide view of society to our most intimate relationships. For the last 250 years or so, our ideas about love have been totally dominated by a philosophy called romanticism. And believe me, its influence has had some seriously unromantic consequences.
Romanticism basically sold us this whole package of ideas. You know, that there's one perfect soulmate out there just for you. That if someone really loves you, they should just know what you're thinking without you having to say it. That love is just a feeling, not a skill you have to learn. And that your sex life should always be perfect and magical. You can probably see how this is a recipe for some massive disappointment.
And what happens when we believe all this stuff? Well, de Botton has a great phrase for it: a catastrophic outbreak of sulking. It comes directly from that romantic belief that your partner should be a mind reader. You get upset because they haven't understood something that you never actually said out loud. It's a classic relationship trap, and it's born right out of this romantic ideal.
But why are we so easily tricked by these damaging ideas about love and success? The answer, according to de Botton, is buried deep, deep in our past. It's in a kind of hidden script that was written for us before we even knew how to read. This quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? So much of how we act as adults, especially in our relationships, is just an unconscious replay of patterns we learned when we were tiny kids. And until we can really understand that original story, we're kind of doomed to just keep acting it out over and over again.
So here's how that script gets written. When you're a kid, love is almost always mixed up with something difficult. Maybe a parent's anger or their sadness, or maybe they were just distant. We learn that specific mix as our first emotional language. It starts to feel familiar, like home. So then as adults, we aren't really choosing freely. We're unconsciously drawn to people who can make us feel that same familiar blend of love and suffering.
Now here's a really crucial part.
we shouldn't judge these patterns in ourselves too harshly. That tendency you might have to shut down emotionally, or maybe to always be the funny one who can never get serious, that doesn't seem crazy anymore when you realize it was probably a brilliant survival strategy you invented as a kid to cope. The only problem is that amazing defense mechanism might not be serving you so well as an adult.
So, if we're all walking around with these old childhood programs running in the background, what on earth do we do about it? Well, the path forward doesn't start with trying to change our partner or the world. It starts with understanding ourselves.
De Botton has this brilliant, kind of provocative idea. He says instead of asking boring questions on a first date, you should ask, "How are you mad?" And if the other person says, "Oh, I'm not mad at all, I'm perfectly easy to get along with," you should run. The point is that real sanity isn't about being flawless. It's about knowing exactly where your own unique brand of madness lies.
And that's really the whole point. We don't need perfect partners. In fact, someone who thinks they're totally easy to live with is probably going to be a nightmare. The best we can really hope for is to find someone who knows they're tricky, who can give us a heads up about their imperfections, and who is actually committed to working on them. That kind of self-awareness, that's the real foundation of a good relationship.
And this brings us to the final and maybe most powerful idea. If romanticism is a fantasy that sets us up to fail, what's the alternative? Well, de Botton points us back to a much older and much wiser way of thinking about love. The ancient Greeks had this idea of love as a classroom. It's not about finding some perfect person who completes you. It's about two imperfect people getting together to kindly and generously help each other grow. Love isn't some final destination. It's a joint project of becoming better people together.
So you see the difference, right? The romantic goal is to find someone who just accepts every single part of you, no questions asked. A much healthier and more loving goal is to find a good enough partner. Someone you can love who is also committed to the idea that you are both a work in progress, helping each other improve along the way.
And this is where we'll leave it. De Botton suggests the ultimate point of life isn't to somehow avoid pain, because let's be honest, no life is without its tears. The real goal is to learn from it. It's to turn our tears into knowledge. A good life isn't a problem-free life. It's a life where we've learned something valuable from our problems. Which really makes you think, what knowledge are your own tears trying to teach you?